Which example should I give?
For example, I would say that in communism, that the person, even the high-level educated person, were the same or almost the same paid like the not educated person. They had almost the same salaries. Even they were in different situations, they had different kind of education.
Well, but it makes sense what you're saying. But the comparators are determined by the legal system. So the socialist legal system was not considering this situation a different situation.
No, it's not discrimination because in the employment you have the definition of specific human capital, which can be a higher value than the common.
It probably makes sense from the point of common sense, but from the point of European law, neither your statement nor your statement.
No, what I said is important for the employer. That's it. That's why it's not discrimination for them.
Okay, so discriminate. There are two. Yes.
As far as I observed that we might have different position on what discrimination means. For me, even the law, or even that it is written on the law, it can be a law that discriminates, even it is a written law accepted. And communism, it was in the law, and in my opinion, it discriminated. I'm not
defending the communist system because
it's not democratic. No,
it's a largely lawless system. But I simply said that it's a bad example because now we're speaking about the developed equality regime of the European Union. So it's a good example for the sake of describing equality in theory, but it's not a good functional example for us now. But I take your point about something that is right in the law and can be discriminatory. That can be discrimination. So discrimination can be in place no matter whether it's in the law or not in the law. Discrimination can be in fact, discrimination can be in law. That's why we have basically two main types of discrimination.
And this example with a Hungarian person who wants to work in the British Army, and I think that in the law it is not discrimination, but actually it is discrimination. In my opinion, personal opinion, let's say, or personal opinion from the point of view of sociology.
When we speak about discrimination, we should not only find the comparator, but we also need to check the grounds. So sometimes you can compare yourself with someone in a similar situation and you come to the conclusion that you are treated differently from that person. But you need to check the ground of discrimination. Famous case in European law actually, of Flynn. You know the case?
What?
Of Flynn. Mr. Flynn was an Irish national and a European citizen by virtue of connection with Ireland, who worked in the UK. And in the UK, all the workers are entitled to, well, I will describe the situation first. He worked in the UK, and he was there with his son, and his son died. This is a very sad case, as you see. And according to UK law, all the workers in that area were entitled to some special assistance from the UK authority for burying their dead, burying their relatives. So Mr. Flynn applied for this money, took the body of his son, moved back to Ireland, and buried his son. And then he gets a letter from the competent authorities in the UK saying, actually, you are not entitled to get the money because we connect giving the money with burying the relatives in the British soil. And on the face, the law doesn't discriminate. It says any worker with any community nationality or EEA nationality is entitled to the money as long as the debt occurred in the soil of the UK. And then the court comes to the conclusion that there is a violation of Article 12 because there is indirect discrimination. Although the law doesn't discriminate openly, indirectly, it is more likely that community workers coming from outside the UK would like to bury their relatives outside the UK, not on the UK soil. So although the law doesn't discriminate, de facto there is discrimination. And there is a prohibited ground. The prohibited ground, the ground of discrimination is nationality. So only because the guy was Irish and because he wanted to bury his son in Ireland, was he deprived of this money. And this is something that is not allowed under community law. You cannot discriminate on the basis of nationality either openly in the law or indirectly by way of how the law applies. And this is a good example because there are no exceptions which are applicable to the case. So you can clearly compare an Irish worker who wants to bury his son in Ireland and who used to work in the UK, and the UK worker who wants to bury his son in the UK. There is a general ground of discrimination which is prohibited, nationality. And at the same time, there are plenty of possibilities for the member states to legally discriminate, if you want. And then, since they do it legally, we cannot use the word discrimination anymore, because they simply apply the law. If you apply the law, it's called differentiated treatment. So let's not confuse discrimination and differentiated treatment, which is legal. Not all the situations fall within the scope of community law. So Article 12 can only be invoked when it's absolutely clear that community law applies. And community law does not always apply to your situation. Imagine you are like, if you're a national of a member state, if you never moved to another member state for work, for study, etc., then you're not covered by community law. Because in order to fall within the scope of community law, you need to have exercised your free movement right already. And this is something that is not entirely logical in community law, because in order to be a fully fledged citizen covered by the non-discrimination provisions, you need to use your European citizenship rights first. So without using your European citizenship rights, you are a kind of second-class citizen, and you will remain like this until the time when you choose to use your free movement rights. That's why in the cases I assigned, the court always looks at the situation of the citizen when Article 12 could be invoked. So the court checks whether the person who tries to use Article 12 has ever moved and resided in the other member state of the community. Basically questions the basic assumption of community law, that the field of community law, the sphere of community law is very limited, and thus it doesn't protect everybody. So if we agree that there is equality, it means that equality is understood in the European community in a very bizarre way. But if we agree that we need to do something with it and we need to promote real equality, then obviously the cases you refer to should be covered. Then there should be no exceptions to the equality rule, because either we are equal or we are not. And unfortunately, community law at this stage